I'm the executive director of Heru Urban Farming. One of our locations is up here at Confluence Farms. It's a 250-acre property, using like 13 acres of it. I am a specialty crop farmer, so I grow fruits and vegetables. I grow for the St. Louis Zoo, Operation Food Search, and different chefs across St. Louis, and also Ferguson Farmers Market. Today, like I said, we're gonna talk about weed suppression and soil health. We got some winter rye out there. We're gonna look at some vetch out there as well. We got different tools that I use on the farm, and different strategies that I use when I'm planting different things, especially things that need a lot of nitrogen. So I just go over my practices and what I do, and yeah, take you on a ride through there. First, I want to start when people say no-till. I want you to think more about not just not tilling, right? We really want to build an ecosystem here. So we want to build on top of the soil. We want to create this life. No soil should be bare, right? So when you think about no-tilling, just think about always putting layers on top. You're trying to feed it. You want, like I say, you want to create its own life, its own ecosystem, and take it from there. And we're gonna start getting the tools. Well, first tools, because I'm sitting right here. These are garden knives, right here. And these knives are real sharp too. You get these from Johnny's. It's for weeds, of course. And you get them, you just cut them down at bottom. It's just self-explanatory with these. You get these from Johnny's. It's called garden knives right here. And these are stirrup hoes. So it's different sizes. I get these from Johnny's as well. So you got your large, your small, and you got a medium-sized one as well. And these are probably one of my favorite tools I use for weeds. And then when I'm using this, basically you're just moving it back and forth like that, and it just comes right on up, right? And this is what we use the most. And the key is to try to step on it. You don't want to create a seed bank. So you want to jump on your weeds before they start getting the bloom and like getting the flower. Because once, man, you could spend all summer getting weeds, and then that one seed bank jump on your bed and it's like start over from scratch. So it's very frustrating. So, and as time goes, you build your soil, and you out here, you'll get less and less weeds every year. So basically, we just start on just like that, back and forth. And then my other favorite one that I like is a wheel hoe. This one needs some air in it, but we do these for our walking paths. So, you basically just coming in like this, and it creates your paths real good. And, usually what we do, if there's no weeds on there, we'll sweep it up on the beds. But if not, we'll just rake it out the end and take it out. And it's just easier, because like, for example, we got all this stuff in there we want to clean up. What some people do, they use white clover, because you can put white clover in your walking paths as well. I might try to do that this year too. But with white clover, it's a nitrogen fixer, but also it handles well when people step on it. So in a walking path, you can step on it. It's not, we see clover everywhere. Also, some people use wood chips. I don't really like it that much, because you gotta be careful with wood chips, especially if you turn your beds a lot and you grow a lot of things that need nitrogen, because wood chips can take away the nitrogen. It sucks up the nitrogen from your soil. So you just be careful with beds like that. Like I'm putting watermelon over here this summer, so I wouldn't put wood chips over here, because I don't want to, take away my nitrogen from my watermelon. Some people use burlap sacks, especially if you got like a smaller space. You use burlap sacks that in your walking paths as well. But again, that's probably more for like, it's good for weed suppression, but good for like aesthetics mostly, especially at a small spot and things like that. And you can put wood chips on top of that. You can use cardboard. Cardboard is another thing that can decompose in your soil as well. And if you use horse manure or something else that we use, it's a nitrogen fixer as well, but it has to be, it has to sit for at least a year. So I say you gotta go through a winter. That's my rule of thumb. You gotta sit through a winter. So with this pile, I got it right here because I use it for when I do my watermelon. I'll take a container and I mix horse manure in a bucket, or if I have some chicken poop, and I put some compost in there, and I put like some, I call it fish juice. I get some fish emulsion and stuff, put it all in there, and I'll make it. And then I drill my hole before I plant my watermelon, and I put that in the hole before I plant it. So that's what I do that specifically for watermelon. So yeah, we had this horse manure here since last year. So basically we just scoop this up, do our mix, and after you plant, put it in there. They love, from my experience with watermelon, they love the horse manure in there. So yeah, that's just one of my tricks I do with watermelons. Also, what you can use to kill weeds as well, and we took all ours up too, but still it's tarp. So the wind took that out last week, so we actually toss that. If we cut the cover crop down or just have weeds and you just don't have the manpower, you can cover it with the silage tarp. And you can keep that on there for like at least 2 weeks and take it up, and then you'll have your bare ground after that. So that's another thing that I use as well, is a silage tarp. Over here is one of the beds we had cover crop on. This is a winter rye, and we got some hairy vetch in here. Hairy vetch is right here. It's this kind, and then this is the rye. When we cut this, we want to cut it before it gets the seed, because you don't create this bank. So we'll come here and flail it. We'll flail it or cut it with the BCS. Then once we do that, we'll cover it up. Then we'll cover it up for about 2 weeks. And then when we finna plant, you just take it and move it to the side and we plant in there.
You cover it with the tarp?
Yes, yeah, with silage tarp, yep. Or the black tarp that I was showing y'all down there. Then once you cover it up for like 2 weeks, we'll take it off, then we'll just move it to the side. Then of course it'll break down, put nitrogen in the soil, and also it's a weed barrier too. And keep weeds from coming up. And these 2 beds have the least amount of weeds. For fall, we like using, we use winter rye, oats, crimson too, because when crimson will come up, that's also a nitrogen fixer, and hairy vetch. And then for summertime, we'll use buckwheat or we'll use sorghum. I like using sorghum myself because I like getting it's a natural sweetener. So I like using the sorghum for that. And we got a machine that we use to get the sweetness about of it. And also, when you companion plant, that could be a cover as well for weed suppression. Usually when we growing like, tomatoes, for example, tomatoes, we'll grow cilantro at the feet, right? So we can keep the weeds down. Or we put some marigolds underneath stuff. And anytime you're growing something up high, we'll grow a root crop to go down low and just to keep it covered.
Coming through with the flail on this, or however you're gonna try and terminate it, are you getting down to like scalp it down to soil level? Or do you feel like the tarp, just with 2 weeks, is really gonna get the rye down?
Right, so I say 2 to 3, but usually like 2. But we cut it pretty low. Yeah, we cut it pretty low. Yep. And then sometimes we'll crimp it. Well, we'll crimp sorghum. We'll crimp that, and then we just put that to the side and put that in the walking path. So that's how you move that around. Okay. So yeah, so that take care of the walking path too.
Tyrean, do you do cover crops on all of the plots, or do you just on
certain ones? Cause in my mind, I be like trying to test stuff, experiment stuff. So I'm like, or some stuff be easier than others. So so I like cover crop the best, but sometimes we run out of seed. So then sometimes over the winter I put leaf mulch on top of it, and I put some compost, and then I cover it like that too. Or I do it like that. So it all depends. Either it's gonna be cover crop or it's gonna be leaf mulch, then a compost on top of it. All right, so these beds over here, actually trying to get these prepped. We're gonna throw some, I'm put my tomatoes and peppers and stuff over here. One of the tools we use for aeration, I can never say that word right, aeration of the soil, is from broad forking. That's one of the things we use for no tilling. Of course, with tilling, you breaking up the topsoil and everything like that, replanting seed banks and stuff. So that's where the broad fork come in. So you get a broad fork from Johnny's, or I guess a few places, but I like Johnny's and Metal Creature. I like the Metal Creature better. It's heavier and it's more work, but I always break the ones with the wood. If I use that a couple times, I'm breaking it. So I just like, I don't like the wood, so I use the Metal Creature. Most of the teeth on here is 12 inches. Some would be like 14. I think they got some other sizes, but we typically use the 12-inch ones. And then this is for a shorter bed, but it's good for demonstration. We got a longer ones too. We just roll it back like this. It's all about, you wanna be careful with your back. And I kind of eyeball it to see, okay, I think this will go right here. Yep. Now you just put my 1 foot in front of the other so you can brace yourself, especially so you won't pull your back or nothing. And just pull it on down like that. Like I said, this one's gonna be a little heavier than the Johnny's because there's the material different. And then this one is, I don't know if I want to touch this, break this. So I'm scared to do it really. But yeah, just pull it back like that. It's lighter. Yeah. So when we first started broad forking over here, it wasn't going in like this. I can tell you that right now. When we first started, that feels good. It was just like boom, and I had to like jump on it like like that. Yeah. So so I can just tell by doing that over the years, it's easier to broad fork now. So that's a good thing. And also, like I say, aerated. It also helps the whatever you put on it, compost or whatever, leaf clippings, it'll go down too.
Do you do that every year?
I don't. I don't know if I should or not, but over here I did every year. Last year we didn't. So it all depends, really. Depends on if I feel like I need to do it, I guess, or sometimes you do it off of manpower too. So if you got also at first you got a whole wide day to do, you like, dang, I gotta do all this. So you know, so yeah.
What are some signs that you look for that are showing that you need to do it?
I really just take my hand, and I just take my hand and go on top of it, or like take a tool or something, or like a garden tool or something, just do like that. And I put it in the dirt. That's all I do. And if I feel like it's too compacted, and I'm like, okay, time to broad fork. Yep. Even if you don't do this, you can still build it up. Even if you don't broad fork, as long as you keep stacking, like I said, a rule of thumb, you don't want it naked. So even when this decomposed and I got actual crops over here growing and I see the ground getting bare, we'll put some more leaf mulch on it or whatever. What I would do, like after I broad fork, I'll take that BCS and that Heru on there, and I'll come across it, and I'll come across the row and let it break up.
So Tyrean, can you explain why using a broad fork is different than tilling? Because you're still disturbing the soil, but what makes it different?
With a tiller, you really stay in surface level, really, and you just keep grinding the same spot all the time. And you know, but with that, it's not turning it per se, it's opening it up, you know, because with his teeth, it's just going under, and we just breaking it up like that. So you still getting the air circulation and still getting different stuff you put in there to get down to the bottom without just standing on the top and just turning the same thing over and over. Oh yeah, getting their workout on. This is a BCS, all right? This is actually my favorite piece of equipment that's up here on the farm. I call it a baby tractor. That's what I call it. But I call it a baby tractor because you could do different attachments to this, and basically you can just use this for your whole operation, especially if you're a market farmer, things of that nature. So right now, that's like a Heru. So I use that to loosen up the soil at the top before I plant. That's what I use that piece of attachment for. And then you got an auger. I got that on the back of my trailer. I use that for the walking paths actually. And then when you use it, it throws dirt on one side and you clearing a path. So it's like you just took some dirt and made a pile. That's how I made these rows with the auger that's on there, I call it. And you got a flail mower you can put on that. You can put a bucket on it. You can put a lot of different things on here. But yeah, BCS machine. And you can start it with a key. You can pull it as well. It all depends how I want to act. Right on. It got different gears on here, so I put it on one. I don't want to go too fast, so. All right, so yeah, so basically, like after they brought forward, I did this one just to be doing it because I wanted to come back. But yeah, see how they made it all heal up or whatever when they was broad forking it and it flattened it all out and it breaks up. It's usually good, especially when you got soil that's not as loose. And just get your top together. And also take care of your weeds too, if you got weeds in there. But yeah, then it makes it all easy to pull. And usually, like when we plant over here, I'll move this to the side and I'll drill a hole in there and then I'll plant. So that way, this will be breaking down, feeding your soil, and then we got all the, then it's loose, and that'll keep your weeds from coming up too, as well. So that's basically just how we plant here. Do that, drill a hole and plant. Yep.
So Trent, have you ever done, before you started here, doing tilling, where you did intensive tilling?
Yeah. I did. When I first started, my grandma used to till, so our backyard. So yeah, I did used to till. Hurt myself tilling too. I got a mark still on my leg from tilling. But I do tell the difference though, from when I used to till and when I'm just doing a no-till. I noticed the yield's better, how big it is, stuff like that for your crops, and the soil quality as well. So yeah.
Have you noticed less weeds when you do no-till?
Oh, definitely. It's still gonna be weeds, but it's less weeds for sure. Less of a headache.
This is what they call a backsaver probe. I was a soil scientist for USDA. I'm retired for a while, but we used to go out in the fields and map with these. You can take, it's got a tube on the end of it that's cut out, and you take it and you stick it in the ground and pull it back out, and you can look at 12 to 15 inches of soil. Then you clean the tube out, and it's got a rod on the inside of it with that foot pedal. You can stick it back down. We can go down 40 inches to look at what the soil characteristics are, because the layers under the ground are called horizons in soil. And there can be all different kinds of layers, just like from the top of the hill right behind us, the ridge, down to where you get close down to where the creek bed is. You got water running that way all the time, so the soils down here are going to be wetter than they are up on the ridge. And you know, you got to take that into mind when you're putting certain crops out, because certain crops just don't like water. We mapped. I made maps of soils. That's what I got paid to do. You push a hole and you make sure you do it in an open place so you can see where you put it, so you can put it back in that hole again. No, stop, Charlie. Don't put it out again. You got to pull it out and clean it first. You'll never get it out of the ground. You can see here the darker material on the surface, and it's only a couple inches thick. See that? If you start to just barely curl it back, you can see how it's gotten lighter in color. The browns and the oranges are caused by oxidized iron. The two major chemicals that color soil is carbon and iron. When the soil is saturated for long periods of time, the iron will reduce and it turns gray. And if it's well drained, it'll stay orange, or it'll even get red. You'll notice that in a lot of soils it get really red. Now, one thing about this, and I just noticed when I was playing with that little piece, is that this was all blown up here by the wind. This is wind-blown soil. This is what they call loess. It was blown in here probably about 20,000 years ago, after the last glacial period. Somewhere between 20 and 12,000 years ago. But if you rub this between your fingers, there's a lot of sand in this. Especially when you get up here closer to the top. There's quite a bit of sand in this. You know, you end up pulling it apart and looking inside it like this, you can see where there's worm burrows and, you know, pores and root channels. There's a little spot right there. You see that? A little round white hole. You want to see that?
That's cool.
There's a little bitty hole right there. You see the difference? There's a little black rim around it. That's where there was a worm went through here, and now it's refilled in with materials again. I mean, or it could have been a root too. It starts to turn from orange, and you start to see some lighter colors in there. We're starting to get a little bit of gray. You notice it? That gray means that we're getting into a layer where there's water, more water that's running underground possibly, or through pores down there. You know, water can run either horizontal or vertical through the ground. It can run laterally or it can run straight
That's
down.
how we tapped into that lake, that pond we got up there. Yeah, we had to drill and tap hit the water.
Was it getting sandier? Not really.
We're getting that clay now. Getting deep enough for that.
Really fine.
This is still silty clay loam. This isn't clay. If you take soil and you rub it between your thumb and your forefinger like that, and it doesn't shine, it's less than 40% clay. In order to get to clay, you have to have 40%. Silty clay starts at 40% of the percentages of sand, silt, and clay particles. Those are the 3 particles that make up texture. Now remember that color doesn't have anything related to texture at all. It doesn't have anything to do with fertility. You know, if you start seeing a lot of gray, you probably got low fertility. But
So go to what he was saying with the glass clippings, that's equivalent to the cover crop.
oh yeah,
Yeah. You know, you do the cover crop, chop it down, and stuff like that. Also, what would be, I find my favorite cover crop also leaf mulch. And what was your opinion on leaf mulch?
high carbon and nitrogen.
High carbon? All right.
Once again, you're putting acids in the ground.
Okay.
You want to put bases in the ground. You want your base saturation to go up.
Okay.
You want your pH to go up, because all the leaves do is make it acidic.
Okay.
The thing about grass clippings is that, and you all know this, you never run out from spring to fall. You never run out of grass clippings. Come on, all you gotta do is bag it, put it in your garden, and it's doing like your cover crop does, but it does it all year. You know, I stockpile big piles in the fall, and then I throw it over on my whole garden. I've got grass clippings 2 to 3 inches thick.
Does straw and hay work the same way, or
No.
that
With straw, you got a high carbon and nitrogen ratio.
Then you got seed bank too.
And with hay, you got every kind of weed seed in the world.
Yeah.
That's the thing about grass
I
clippings.
learned that by default. I used hay the first time, and I saw it got my weeds worse.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I threw hay down. I thought something like, it's seeds all in there.
The thing about grass clippings too is that if you're going to do it, you got to do it, and you got to cut often enough that they don't put on seed. You got to watch your grass, because you start getting. I mean, I got all kinds of grass grown in my garden from, you know, you can't hardly find it, and I got Bermuda grass.
So that's deeper. I see
Yeah.
the topsoil
Yeah.
deeper over here.
It is.
And then over there is just right here. So I knew it was gonna look different.
Right.
Yeah.
How many years on this one?
This is 5 years.
5
over
years.
there, 5, no, 6 maybe. I know over there 3 years for sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it a
So,
little thicker?
Yeah,
Yes,
thicker and it's more topsoil.
Well, I was going to say that I found it took about 5 years, and mine went to about 5 inches.
Okay.
And now I'm 25 years in, and I'm about 25 inches thick. It's almost, it's darker than that.
Oh, yeah, wow.
You know, I mean, it's really, really rich.
Okay. All right. So it typically take about 5 years to turn to get the soil how you want it.
Yeah. You know, I took a shovel and dug a hole and took a clod out about 6 inches deep, about that big around, and it was just riddled with earthworm nuggets. You know, burrows. You can see the burrows, and you can even see the little nuggets of earthworm fertilizer. Let's leave it proper here. But and just barely try to pick across it like that. You see how it starts to expose the colors in there, and you can see there's oranges and browns. That's oxidation, and you can see the dark right there. There's probably a worm channel right there where that dark material is. See that? And then down, we'll see the bottom part. See, the bottom's all nice and brown. You know, it doesn't look like it's got a lot of reduction going on yet. But the last piece I did, when you push that out of there, you pull it out, and you get a little sample. And then you can break it open, and there you can see there's some grays in there, and there's some oranges, and there's some blacks, where you're starting to get all the different oxidation reduction reactions taking place. I do a thing called companion crops, whereas this is a cover crop. I do companion crops. I got clover that grows in my garden year round. And so you end up having nitrogen fixation from a legume. So you end up adding nitrogen naturally. And the thing about clover is that it gets real thick like vetch or rye. And when you're trying to grow something, like I get in there and I start, this is my best friend. He walks with me almost all the time. But you know, this is the only tool I use in my garden. I'll hold a little furrow like that. See, there's a root right there. See that? Who knows what that root is? See it right there? There's a live root or something. I don't know what it is. But you get clover, and oh my God, clover got these roots that are so thick. And when you're trying to put in corn or something, a lot of times you just got to hoe right out and take the clover root with you. Of course, there's more clover on the side, so you constantly got competition. And then when you get clover growing and it starts to go to flowering, if you let it go to seed, you're just gonna have a clover field. You're not gonna have a garden. So I gotta cut the clover off with my hoe, and that turns into a green manure crop. Just like this turns into as soon as he kills it off. Did you say how you kill this? You just covering it?
We flail it.
Okay, yeah.
They'll flail it when sometimes it get high. We mostly flail when it's high, or sorghum, because that get high. That get real tall, we flail that. Yeah. Or we'll just cover it, but anytime we'll come to the BCS and just cut it. Yeah.
There's a guy up in North Dakota who's been a proponent of soil health for like 30 years. He's world renowned. His name is Gabe Brown. He's got a place called Brown's Ranch. But he'll plant Sudan, and it gets to be 10 to 12 feet tall. I've been on his ranch and I've seen it. And he crimps with a roller crimper, and then he drills right behind the roller through that Sudan and like a 7 or 10 cover crop mix, and drills corn right into it. And his cover, his mulch is like 6 to 6 inches thick, and the corn comes right up through it. It's unbelievable. And his soils are sand. They're black sand.
That's Sudan grass. That's the type of sorghum too, Sudan. What is? Yeah.
But I mean, this is up in North Dakota.
That practice you're talking about planting annuals into possibly perennial stands, that's really popular. They've been doing it in Australia for
forever.
Forever.
Yeah. Well, you know, the crazy part is our grandparents did it. My grandparents were farmers on both sides of my family over in Illinois, and they had clover, and they rotated into clover and the livestock and stuff all the time.
I just want to get a look at it.
You've been working in these beds for some years, I would imagine.
No, it's like 3-4 years, but we've been working it though.
Yeah,
I can tell you that.
Oh yeah, there's definitely improvement. This is definitely showing improvement to these soils that has occurred from,
It was all corn up here before we got up here. Well, I guess I do a backstory. Before we came up here, this was all corn. So the first year we grew sunflowers. We was taking I guess the chemicals out the soil with sunflowers. So we planted all sunflowers up here at first. So I failed to mention that. And I'm happy at really how it looks right now, because when I first was working on this, it was all this lower part. It wasn't even black. It wouldn't even have that mixed in. It was just all clay, really. And man, we've been putting a lot of different leaf mulch, horse manure. We've been working these plots over here for sure.
I know from planting a couple sunflowers in my neighborhood, it does bring a lot of attention from the neighbors. They turn out
they'll walk right up.
They turn out beautiful, and not to mention some of the migratory doves and things. Wildlife will use those, but really turns out beautiful and kind of a showpiece. And maybe in that first year, that's kind of a tough year because you're trying to convert the soil.
Yep. The yields was different. Yeah, we first started. Bless you. I can just tell that from the soil too. Different yields and pest penetration as well.